All right, so thank you for signing up for bowtuneschool.com and our free rest installation video. In this video, we're going to walk through step by step on how to install a drop away rest, and we're also going to talk about a static rest like a whisker biscuit. This is just one of the modules in our entire bowtuneschool.com class. It's 13 different modules, so we are going to cover everything from terminology. We're going to walk through all the terminology that you need on, basically with archery, and talking about your equipment. Rest installation, obviously. Sight setup, we're going to cover second and third access adjustments. We're also going to dive into setting up slider sights, because that can have a little bit of a learning curve. Bow setups, we're going to talk about the difference between hunting bows, target bows, and some tips and tricks we've learned over the years from being in the field for decades of experience there. Tuning, we're going to talk about cam lean, we're going to talk about timing, and then we're going to talk about paper tuning and broadhead tuning. So we're going to get you all the way ready for the field. We're going to talk about restringing your bow, arrow building from arrow selection, different fletching types, and then finally we're going to walk through all the tools that you're going to need for your home shop and maybe how to set up that home shop the best way possible, and a couple different options on all of that. We've got some really exciting tools we want to share with you. You don't need to go out and spend $800 on a bow press. We're going to show you some options where you can get away with some minimal equipment to do everything you need in your home shop without spending another $2,000 on equipment. So thanks for joining us once again, and stick around at the end of the video. We're going to have, thank you for joining us at bowtuneschool.com. And thank you for signing up for our free rest installation video. We're going to walk through how to set up a QAD HDX rest on this G5 Thrive. This is a really nice bow, one of the most popular rests out there. We're going to walk through how to set this guy up, the ins and outs of the whole thing. So thanks for starting your path on becoming a bow technician and being able to work on your own equipment. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to throw in the main mounting bolt, and this guy is going to go in right through the back here. The only thing you want to watch for right now is you want to make sure that this bar is pretty much level on the bow, okay? We don't want this at a real weird angle. It looks bad, first off, and then you get a bad angle on the back of your riser, the connection between the back of your riser and your rest. You want that, like on this bow, it's really nice because it's flat and flat, so you have a lot of connection points there. So that's just going to reinforce that mount and make it a little more rigid, so if you do bump it in the field or whatnot, it's not going to move around on you. The next step is I'm going to tighten this, but I'm not going to get too crazy with it, just fairly snug. The nice thing on pretty much any high quality rest, there's going to be a set screw somewhere on this guy. That is how you're actually going to tighten down this rest, so it's not going to go anywhere. One common mistake we see in the shop a lot is, guys, torque the heck out of this thing. So the second step in installing the rest, we're going to use our Easy Eye laser guide. And this guy is going to give us our dead center left-right on the entire bow. So it mounts right here where your sight mounts. And you're just going to hand tighten those guys in. This laser on, I'm going to swing it back, and what I want is the laser dead center in the center of the string. So you can kind of use your hand here to get left, right, and slide that over. So that's going to show me the dead center of the string, and that's my dead center on my bow, left, right. So we're going to use that, carry that forward for our arrow. So now that we have our laser mounted and centered off the string, we're going to take an arrow, throw this guy on, and that's going to give us our guide for our left-right. So turn our laser back on, and we're quite a bit to the right, obviously, of our center line on our bow. This is where it's set factory, so I'm going to loosen this left-right adjustment here and slide it as far over as I can. Unfortunately, we're still not quite there. We're not at the center line of the bow. So this is kind of where we're going to get into a few of the tricks on this rest and trying to get this guy just a little further over to the center line. So what I'm going to do, the first adjustment I'm going to make is on the actual launcher arm, tighten this back down. On the actual launcher arm here, there are 2 sets of screw mounts. I'm going to back these guys out and shift them over to this furthest right set, okay? And for right now, I'm not going to herc those down. These may be screws that when you're all set and done, you might want to go back in and touch these back up with some blue Loctite. But for right now, we're still kind of making sure everything's going to line up. So I'm going to tighten those just fairly snug. And we're going to throw our arrow back on. Turn our laser back on, and we're close. We're almost there, but we're not quite dead center on that arrow, unfortunately. Now, the unfortunate part here is we're all the way maxed out on our left-right adjustment here, and we're all the way maxed out here on our mounting bracket for our launcher arm. So the other adjustment that comes with these QADs is a spacer that goes in between the actual rest and the rest mounting arm. And it's basically going to replace this bolt here, and there's going to be a spacer that sits in there. What that's going to allow us to do is shift this whole setup out to the left a little further. Okay, so now we've got that spacer in there. Tighten this guy back down. I'm gonna get it somewhat centered for your left, or for your vertical there. But see how that shifted that whole rest out considerably now. We're gonna throw our arrow back in, and there we go. We're quite a bit to the left of our center now. So I'm going to go back to this main adjustment here and cheat that so it's as close to center as I can get here. Next, we're going to rotate this all the way to the end of the arrow, and we're going to check our center at the end of the arrow for our left-right. So now that we have our laser somewhat centered on the back side of our arrow, we're going to run it out to the very end of our arrow as a final check. And so if you'll notice, we were centered before, but now that laser is all the way to the right of our arrow. So we're going to cheat that guy over a little. Get it to settle down here. And we want it as close to dead center as possible. It doesn't have to be perfect right now. We are going to fine tune a lot of that with our paper tuning and just our field tuning. And that's going to be in a separate module in bowtuneschool.com, but this is going to give us a really good left-right center point. Okay, so the third step in mounting our rest is we're going to get our vertical adjustment. So the burger hole is this hole right here, and this is the same hole that we mounted our sight bolt to on the back side. But this is most commonly referred, it's basically the center of your bow. This is the center point of your entire bow. And this is, for most bows, your arrow is going to run directly through the center of this. And that's going to give us our dead center for our height. You also, on these QADs or any drop away rest, you want some clearance on the bottom. You don't want that rest hitting the shelf every time. So that's going to make that rest really loud, and it's not going to lock down in the correct position. So you do want to make sure you have some clearance on the bottom when it's all the way down. But for right now, we're going to throw an arrow back in, and we're going to line up that burger hole. So throw that guy in, and That looks pretty good, a little high. So I'm gonna drop this down just a hair. And what I'm looking for from the side here, you want to get on that same level, is that arrow to just intersect directly through that hole. So looks like we're pretty good there. Once again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Don't spend all day at this step. We're going to fine tune a lot of that with our paper tuning. So from that step, we're going to use our level tools. This is our string level. We're going to throw this guy on the string. And our arrow level, we're going to run all the way out to the end of the arrow. So the next step is we're going to level our string level here, and this is going to level our bow overall. So we're going to get that guy so that's centered, and this is where a nice vise comes in handy. This is going to allow you to, once you get this level, just set it and be able to level your arrow. Now that we have the string leveled and the bow is level, we're gonna throw on our arrow level. And this is gonna give us the actual level on the arrow. Looks like we're a little high here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna adjust our knock point up. And that's a good reason not to tie your D-loop too tight off the get-go. But looks like that's going to be pretty dang close right there. And so now we have the arrow leveled off the string, and our left or right is set. So now that we've lasered and leveled our rest and we've got our center left, right, basically if you're using a static style rest, whisker biscuit, whatnot, you're done. Like, your rest is ready to go and you're ready to start shooting and paper tuning. But from the next step here, I am going to tie in or connect our actuator cable. And this is what's actually going to actuate the rest, and so it drops out of the way when we shoot. Right now, since our strings and cables are brand new and our rest cable is brand new, everything's going to stretch and break in a little bit. You can tie this or serve this guy into your down cable. And if you want to do that down the road, that works, and we're going to cover that in a whole separate module down the road. But for right now, we're just going to use this football to tie it in. And this is just going to make a nice, easy, temporary tie-in for this actuator cable. And this is also going to make it really easy to adjust the rest. So what I'm doing is, basically there's two grooves on this football. One's going to go over the cable, one's going to go over the cable coming off the rest. And we're just going to tighten this guy down. So initially we're going to tighten it all the way, pretty tight, and then I'm going to back this off one complete turn. So what that's going to do is allow it a little play, and we're going to be able to set the timing on this drop cable. Down, and what I'm going to do is just draw the bow, and we're not going to shoot it at this point. We're going to draw and then let down. And so you can see as I drew the bow, this cable actually pulled through the football, and that gave me about the right tension on this rest. So right now we're pretty close, but what I'm going to do is pull this through about another 1/8 of an inch. We're going to tighten that a little more, and then we're just going to tighten that football down. Okay, so our timing should be set on our rest right now at this point. The only other double check is there are those tick marks on the back of your rest, and we talked about those earlier. So what you want to do now, once again, is draw the bow. Once you get to full draw, you want to make sure those two timing marks line up. If they do, or they're very close, then you're good to go and you're ready to start shooting. All right, well, thank you for watching our free rest installation video. We hope you learned a lot. Also, make sure you sign up at bowtuneschool.com. We're going to be sending out updates periodically. We're still putting the final touches on all the videos. There are 13 different modules we're going to walk through step by step in this course. We're going to talk about terminology. We're going to talk about rest installation. Obviously, in the course we're going to go a little more in depth about limb-driven rests and static rests, such as whisker biscuits. We're going to walk step by step through site installation, first, second, third access adjustments. We're also going to talk about how to set up a slider sight. In the tuning module, we're going to cover cam lean and cam timing. And then finally, we're going to walk through broadhead tuning, so we can get those field points and those broadheads to hit in the exact same spot. We're going to walk step by step through restringing your own bow. We're going to talk through arrow shaft selection and arrow tuning. We're also going to talk about different fletching options, FOC adjustments. We're going to talk about heavy arrows, light arrows, and how to set all of those up. We're going to talk about how to set up your own shop. We're going to walk through the different options, setting up a professional shop, whether you're wrenching on bows every day, or we're going to talk about how to set up your own shop in your garage. Working on your own bow is something that you can do. It's an easy step-by-step process. We've developed this process over the last 20 years of combined experience, and we are 100% confident if you follow this process, you can work on your own equipment and set up and tune your own gear. You can work on your own bow. Let us teach you how.